Lovely. Good evening, everybody. Couple of bits on screen at the minute, just sort of housekeeping stuff. Can you try and keep your mic and camera off just to help us run smoothly this evening? And also, if you can try and find the chat box, wherever that's hidden on your device, just to let us know your kind of background of how you made the step into coaching. What were the things that helped you across the line to get involved and have a go? That would be lovely if you could do that. I'll just take the screen off now, just so I can talk to people where I can actually see them. We're joined by some fantastic guests tonight, and I'll introduce those in a little moment. But firstly, this is the third part of four of a series of webinars around women into coaching, and it's to coincide with International Women's Day that was earlier in this month, and also linked to an FA community that we've launched this month. Coaches in the game, a support network that's happening across the country, which we'll give you more details on later on tonight. We're joined by, officially it's two, but really it's three inspirational guests tonight. They're going to be joining us in our fun house to chat all things coaching, how they got involved, what's their backstory, what they've learned along the way, and if they can shortcut any learnings that they can pass over to you. My role is to try and help us stick to time, listen in, ask some questions. Sam will also be doing that as a colleague as well, but she's got some amazing stories of her own. We will be running till 8:30, but we're quite keen towards the end of the evening that we'll try and give our guests a little time to just pause for a moment, but then we'll get you guys listening to ask some questions and see if there's anything deeper that you want to go into. Our main guest, though, just to give them a really brief introduction, Emma O'Connor is from Oxfordshire. She's got an amazing backstory in her coaching, which she'll go into this evening, but has also started her own football club during lockdown, which I think is quite an achievement. Also joined by Debbie Sayers, who also has in common that she started her own football club, and I'm sure she'll go into her reasons why for that later on, but is incredibly passionate around what child-centred means within grassroots coaching, so I'm sure we'll have some stories from those too. And like I said, Sam and I, we are coach development officers in the west of the country, with a role simply to help recruit and deploy more female coaches into the game, and then to support them as best we can via as many mediums as we possibly can. So Sam, are you looking forward to this evening and what we're going to get into?
Yeah, really excited for tonight. It's nice to be joined by so many people, and I'm sure they'll end up inspiring us as much as we inspire them, hopefully.
Absolutely. Yeah, that chat box is definitely there to be used. Yes, you're going to hear some stories, I hope, and hear some inspirational moments, but I'm sure you've got some too. So please don't be shy in getting into the chat box and adding some thoughts, asking some questions. And like I said, we will try and get a few people on camera and off mute towards the end to get some questions that are really kind of bespoke to you. So to kick us off, Emma, if I come to you first, and Debbie, we'll follow with the same question as well. But can you, Emma, give us a little bit of your story? Where did coaching begin for you, and where's it taking you up to today?
Yeah, so I've played football since I was 5. I wasn't able to play at school because I went to a private school, and I played every other sport, just not football. So when I was 14, I played for Chelsea for about a year. That was before they were associated with the club, and they used to play in Battersea. And then I just fell out of love of football, stopped playing at 15, and then went back into it at uni. But how I got into coaching is I was at uni, broke my leg playing football, carried on. My manager called me lazy because I wasn't able to run while having a broken leg. And then I actually realised I broke my leg the following day, and my first reaction was, we're going to miss our derby next week against Southampton Uni. And it hit me hard that I couldn't actually play football. So the grassroots club I was playing for in Portsmouth as well offered me to do level 1, because actually it really did actually affect me massively. So I started on level 1, and that was 2008. And it's just gone from there, where I've volunteered at lots of grassroots clubs. I've worked for 4 community football clubs. And it was always just, I fell into it by accident. I never planned to be a coach. And then it's now where I worked for AFC Wimbledon for 3 years. I left there a couple of years where I sort of set up a disability and helped out with the girls section. But where we are at the moment is me and my partner moved to a new area in Oxfordshire. We were bored. We had an idea. Well, my partner wanted to play football. And we thought, okay, let's just see if we can get 10 women. And we set this club up called Wheatley Oats. we've actually had about just under 100 players sign up. But the difference between us is we're women over 30, so whether you've played or not. So yeah, we have 41 members. We launched in September, and yeah, we only wanted 10 players, and it's just spiraled that we're going to have to start doing more sessions and just expanding, where it was just an idea. And I said to my partner, we're not going to get 10 players, and we did. So yeah, that's where we are now. So yeah.
I love that. You were bored, so you decided to start a football club. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
If only we all did that when we got bored. Debbie, similar question to you. Kind of, where's your story taking you?
Just to say, Emma, wow, that amount of women involved in such a short time, that's just incredible. So completely hats off to you for that. My story is slightly different. I started a club called Salisbury Rovers about 5 years ago. So we're just approaching our 5th anniversary, our 5th birthday this year. I didn't play football at school. I am old enough, unfortunately, that I wasn't allowed to play football at school, and we weren't allowed girls in those days into clubs either. So the only way that I got to play football was playing around with people informally, you know, sort of on the streets or in playgrounds and things like that. But I was always a long-term, big, passionate Liverpool football fan. So that's kind of my roots, and the way I see football as being kind of community, passionate about football, etc. And when my youngest son, really got into football when he was about 9, I took over the school's football club. And because the school couldn't afford to pay a coach, I sort of said I'd step in and the kids can just play after school. And they did, and the numbers grew, and I ended up with like 20 kids after school playing around, and they just did free play. So it was all just like big kickabout sessions. Really enjoyed it. My son enjoyed it and wanted to join the club, so we joined the local club, and that was a very different experience. It was very structured, very formal, all about teams. Even at under 9s, under 10s aged kids were being selected for teams and being left out. And it was kind of like, turn up on a Saturday and see if you were good enough for Sunday. And I just thought, what is going on here? And the level of direction and shouting at the kids in matches just really put me off, because it seemed to me to be the antithesis really of how you develop and create passion and the love for the game really with children, and create a really good environment so that you can get creative players. So I thought about it, talked to different people, and eventually set up Salisbury Rovers, as I say, 5 years ago. And our focus, as you briefly mentioned, is really about child-centred practice. And so our kids lead the play. We've got about 100 kids at the club, but we also do community projects. We work in areas of socioeconomic disadvantage. We also do disability football. We support girls futsal with another club as well. But everything that we do is led by the kids really, and what they want out of the game. A good example of that is just last year we set up an under 16s separate one team club, because the older boys at our club wanted to create a team for themselves. They wanted to rebrand themselves, and they did. They came up with the name, they designed the badge, they're on the committee, they've organised a tournament this summer for themselves. I just do what I'm told and do the jobs for them as well as coaching. But that's how I got involved really, because I just felt, you know, that things could be better, and that led me, you know, more and more to get on the front line really in terms of coaching.
It's an amazing story as well. It's probably why Sam and I wanted you both on the call. You both looked at something and gone, I can do something about this, and that's incredibly inspirational. I'm really cautious though, Sam, that as much as you're a colleague, you've got quite a story too. So do you want to give us a bit of background for you?
Yeah, but you've stitched me by letting them two go first, because mine does not follow their inspiration and how much they've affected the game and people within it. Yeah, my background, very much fell in love with the game through playing. I started playing when I was sort of probably quite old in terms of what they start at these days, but probably around 12. Played with boys, and then I started playing senior football from 14 back in the day when you could do that. So I had a reasonably successful playing career up until sort of 3 years ago when I did my ACL, and that's probably when I took the plunge into coaching, although probably been kind of coaching, I suppose, probably since I had a passion for it about 14 when I started to volunteer at school, going down the local leisure centre. And I remember just measuring how far kids were jumping at that stage, doing some athletics type stuff. And it just kind of grew from there, really. I've done everything from grassroots, little Liz that struggled to tie the laces in the skills programme for a very pleasant 8-9 years, whatever it was, been with the FA 13 years. And then probably really got a passion for the 11er side once I finished playing, and went on to sort of manage them, and made that transition from playing to managing, which was tough, and I'm still trying to find my feet with it now. So I'm still on a massive learning journey.
It's amazing. And that's a really common route for a lot of people, that they might play recreational football or football at any level, I suppose, and then it's right, what do I do now when that finishes? So regardless of how someone takes the plunge, have you got any sort of top tips for somebody who's stepping into coaching for the first time? If you can think back to when that was you and you were a beginner, are there any sort of tips you'd give that might just help them jump some of the learning experiences? Oh, you're muted, Emma.
I was talking as
one of us was going to do it, so don't worry.
Definitely me first. Yeah, don't be afraid to make mistakes. When you start your coaching journey, because you'll see that's a really key word in football is coaching journey. Once you do, even before your level 1, I'm doing my B licence at the moment, and I probably know about 2% of football. I think it's different for everyone, and it is frightening, especially as, let's be frank, it's still a male-dominated environment, and for some it could be that could increase your anxiety and stuff like that. But I would always say reach out to other coaches. It doesn't matter if it's sort of same gender or people you're comfortable with. Obviously asking questions is good as well. Speaking and obviously getting support from County FA, and also people, if you already know people that are coaches, so friends, speaking to them. And also the most important one is, can you shadow? So shadowing coaches. So I did that at Middlesex when they had a Girls Centre of Excellence in 2014. I was a BBC, so I put balls, bibs and cones out. I didn't do any coaching. I just did that. Whatever the coach did, I did. And I did that for about a year. But the amount of information I learned, and some of these players actually went on and played for England. Listening to the coach, technical details and stuff like that was fascinating. So for me, be a sponge.
A sponge. BBC.
I like that. It's good though.
Yeah, don't be afraid to be a BBC as well, because there's you can just absorb like players' behaviour and also the coach and what they're saying as well. Yeah, but yeah, I'll shut up now.
No, don't shut up at all. That's why you're here, Emma. We want you. Debbie, what springs to my view? Because it was a different journey for you into coaching and for different reasons.
Yeah.
What were the sort of bits you think back to that were really useful at that time?
I think that if I could give one tip to people, it would be to focus on the relationships that you've got with the people in front of you. So I think for me, the biggest, the most daunting thing, it was great to watch other coaches. It was fantastic and learn from them. But we do have coaching as this big performance sport sometimes, so that we've got this usually male figure who's holding forth and keeping control and dominating everything and giving instructions out. And actually, that's not the only way to coach. And what I found is that we can all develop our own way of coaching, actually. And that for me, the strength, my strength would be connecting with individuals. And it's a much more low profile, quieter way of doing things. And it took me a long time to see that was coaching too, actually, because the vision that we've got of what a coach is very different. So I would say don't be put off if you don't feel comfortable doing what you see others do, because find your own strengths. And if you have got, particularly if you're coaching children, if you've got a group of children and they're all enjoying themselves, then you've done your job. And so much of the time we see a lot of angst with coaches because, they prepared this session plan and they're tweaking it and it didn't go the way that I wanted to, and they're reviewing it and there's a lot of angst. You know what? If the kids have enjoyed it and they say at the end of the session, did you like it? Did you enjoy it? And they did. Take the pressure off yourself. Just learn as you go, learn with them, ask questions, let them ask questions. develop relationships. Coaching is about relationships.
Absolutely, and I see that's been you've been acknowledged in the chat there as you were chatting away there, Debbie. What a great way of putting it. Sam, what jumped out for you there from what Emma and Debbie were just saying?
I think they've both made great points, to be honest, and I think probably one of the biggest things is to enjoy it. So we talk about playing, like, and I keep reflecting back to being as a player, like, why, if you're not going to play well if you don't enjoy it. So I think it's just having that, I suppose, that relaxed attitude towards it, and just enjoying what you do and looking forward to it. And I think we were talking before we came on the call about the kids coming back to football and it being fun. I think that's how coaches have got to see sort of next week when we're back, is they're excited to be back. Just go and enjoy it, go and have some fun with the kids. Like, people have been away from this sport that we all love and we're so passionate about for so long. So just go and enjoy it and have a bit of fun, and just, like I say, just let that passion come through of what you want to do.
Yeah, the kids, if anything, have had the last 3 months of being told what to do and talked at. The last thing they need is to go back to football and get more of that.
Yeah.
So absolutely. And obviously the topic, the title that we're looking at is women into coaching. So Debbie, does gender play any kind of important role in what makes a good coach for you?
I think that's a really interesting question. The way that I would see it is, if we replace the word gender with race, where would that take us? If we would start to look at the question of, what do people of colour bring to coaching, we'd be horrified about that as a question. And yet all the time we're asking, what can kind of women bring into coaching? I think what we've got to do is get away from any kind of stereotype that's tied to any kind of particular characteristic of a group, whether that be disability, race or gender or anything else. So we've got to see ourselves as individuals, and that we all bring different things to coaching. That's whether we're male or female. And so for me, the idea of equality is that we don't talk about gender anymore because it's not an issue. The idea of equality in terms of race is that we don't talk about people's colour anymore because it's not an issue. So we have to see it in that light. Having said that, and I'm sure we're going to go on to discuss this, it's absolutely the case that women face many more challenges really in terms of being involved in football. So although we want to be considered as coaches just like anybody else, there really must be an acknowledgement that our journey into the game and our existence in the game is fraught with difficulties a lot of the time, and that needs to have kind of widespread recognition really to be able to deal with it.
Amazing points, Debbie, and completely agree with them. The three of us are nodding away here. Emma, you were really nodding to Debbie. What jumped out for you then? What's your opinion around it?
I think it's right. I always get asked whether it's a coach or just a parent. Just the gender thing sort of winds me up. I'm just bored of it. And when I say I'm bored of it, just keeping so I get challenged on certain things, and then I have another coach who's male that won't have the same questions asked at him or asked for his knowledge. And sometimes you think, is that due to my gender or my age or whatnot? So I coach with a guy who's in his 60s, but we work quite well because we think differently. But I mean, I could talk on about it for ages, but I don't want to. So yeah. Yeah, I just waffle. So yeah.
Not at all.
What's your thoughts, Sam? Where does that resonate for you?
Sorry, I was just reading. So there's so much good stuff going in the chat box, and it's just some of it's just caught my eye. It's. I think the lesser time you've probably been in the game, I think it's probably an eye-opener for some people. Like I say, I've been in it a long time now, and I still get it managing it at the level that I do, which is just below the championship, where the referees will always come over, and we only have a couple of males on our bench, but naturally they will always go to them. They just assume that they're the manager, so obviously that still takes place at our level. But I think because I've probably become sort of used to it, and I say quite a lot at work that it doesn't necessarily bother me, but I don't know if it don't bother me because I've just become used to it and kind of accepted it rather than actually not being bothered by it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But probably having some of these conversations and conversations that I've sort of had previously with a player actually yesterday that I don't mind sharing, that is a very good player who plays for us and did do a level 1 a while ago, but she was really nervous and she said she would have felt much more comfortable doing a female only course, which really surprised me because I'd got this perception in my head that because she was good, that she'd have the confidence to go in that male environment because she knew she could play, but it wasn't. It was about how she was perceived. It was nothing to do with whether she could play or not. It was all about being scared and worried about going into that environment because she's just seen as a female and was worried about whether her opinion would be devalued or whether she'd be looked upon, which, like I say, really resonated with me but surprised me at the same time.
And isn't that a terrible thing, Martin, if I can say, just picking up on that?
No, go for it. Absolutely.
Just seen as a female, seen as a female. And that like sums it all up, really, for me. The experiences that I've had sometimes, and there's lots of positive things, and I'm sure we'll go into this in more detail, but that's your starting point. You're just seen as a female, and then you've got to be seen as a coach. And men don't have that step up, really, because it's assumed if you're male and you're coaching, you're a coach. But we are primarily seen as females and then have to prove ourselves as coaches or players.
And
then,
go
on.
Sorry, I was going to say, Debbie, it sort of replicates society where certain roles we still clarify that females do that and males do that as well. Why I'm just bored of it. So sometimes you do have to, sometimes I feel like I have to have a thick skin, because sometimes it can lead to, going off topic, banter, which sometimes I can find quite offensive. But having the courage to actually challenge it and go, you shouldn't be saying that. And
I think, sorry, I was going to say my work job, my day job is I'm a lawyer, and when I started out in legal practice, women couldn't wear trouser suits in court. The judge would say, I can't hear you have to go away and get changed, literally. And so for me, we've been through that journey, and now in legal practice it's very different. You don't really get that. And for me, going back into football, it's like stepping back in time, where those assumptions that are based on gender are still there, and that women have got a certain role, and it's even just around the language, ladies, and just the assumption that, oh, I'm sorry, there's a woman here now, I can't swear, and things like that. It's just, everybody swears in my workplace, whether you're a woman or a man. Not necessarily a good thing, but there's a way that people think they've got to act differently because you are different, and you're not treated as a human then. You're treated as a label.
Is this, Debbie, we've spoken in the past in a couple of bits, is this a society thing or is this a football thing then? Because you've given a couple of examples there.
Yeah, it is a society thing. Obviously, we talk about this a lot in sport, don't we, in particularly football, but there are systemic problems that we're dealing with, whether that's sexism, homophobia or racism, and they come into the game. There is something particularly male about football and coaching, I think. We haven't made the advances in the game that has happened in other areas of society. So although you will get things like sexism, the numbers of women involved in the game are so low, really, in terms of coaching, that we've just not been able to create any momentum behind that change. And the examples that I've had on the touchline, as Sam has said, is people going to speak to parents, even though they know I'm the coach, because they don't like what I'm saying about the state of the pitch. As an example that I had last season. So they were going to ask my dad, she says this, but what do you think?
Oh my goodness.
Or constantly, it seems like the small things, but like if you're, sometimes with a male parent or a man around, they feel that it's quite acceptable to talk over you, even when you're coaching. Or if you take the line that I do when I'm coaching, which is to facilitate and, use guided discovery, then they jump in. They jump in because, you know, you're not leaving those pauses because that's the way you coach. You're leaving those pauses because you don't know what you're doing. Let me help you. And you get a lot of that. And the question I always ask myself when I get annoyed about things is, would they say that? Would they do that if I was a man? And that's the test. And I know when people treat you in a different way, and that can be dealing with leisure centres or councils or, you know, parents or anything, you know that you're not treated sometimes as seriously because you are a woman. And that, you know, that you've got to pick your battle, you know, because it can be quite corrosive. And so when you say, Emma, that you're tired of it, that's probably what you're talking about. You know that you can't fight every single battle that's in front of you.
Yeah.
So, Emma, you talked about being thick-skinned earlier. Debbie, you're talking about choosing the battles. How have you dealt with this? And this sounds a horrific question. I wish I wasn't asking, but how are you still here? How are you still involved in the game? What is it that's got you through it? Because the game has to change. We have to. And as a male sat here on this, I'm embarrassed and I don't know where to look at times because I can't comprehend why people would be like this, but I know they are. How have you survived? It sounds awful, but that's kind of what we're trying to get at.
Well, for me, it's players. So I also coach a girls under 16 team in Surrey, and it's players. And actually, I'm in a club at Richmond Park where if parents are out of line, see you later, goodbye. Literally, parents, the player can still play, but we don't want the parents coming to training or matches. But I talk to the player. It's all about the players. So what do they want? What do they need? Can I provide that as a coach? Because for me, sometimes there could be coaches that's all about an ego. It's all about, you know, the end of the result on a Sunday. But for me, because I've got such an age group where they're going to drop out if they are not currently playing. And also it's a real stressful time with GCSEs. So football has to be fun. I know we keep saying that, but it has to be fun and it has to be for them. So I always ask them, what do you want from me? Because I'm here for you guys. I'm not here for myself. So you tell me how you want that. And actually you get player involvement, you get player ownership. Right, this is why, and have discussions rather than saying we play this way because I support Chelsea. So we're going to play with, you know, 2 holding midfielders. I actually ask the players, have involvement. They feel engaged and that they're actually, the attendance on Tuesday nights are a lot higher because I've involved them rather than talking to them. I'm not a teacher. They're doing this out of school time. So it's not like they have to do it compulsory. Sometimes there are parents that quickly you have to go to the sessions and stuff. So for me, it's players.
That's the most important thing, isn't it? The players are why we're there in a lot of cases. What about you, Sam? When you've had that, you know, the referee come over and ask the male coaches who's in charge today and things like that, how do you kind of deal with it? Is it the experiences support you, or is there a way you cope? Do you put people right as well? I imagine you do.
I do, yeah. You know me better than that. But yeah, and I think, like I say, it's been interesting, this topic, over the last couple of weeks, because it makes you sort of reevaluate your own thoughts and feelings. Like I say, you know me, Martin. I've been part of, like, we've been working together quite a lot over the last few months, and I think I'm quite a tough-skinned. We've already talked about that sort of person, but I suppose when you start to think a little bit more about things, it does make you wonder sort of how you have done some stuff. And I've just seen somebody just pop in the chat box just around feeling like you probably have to prove yourself. And I probably went through the biggest challenge of that. I probably, 4 or 5 years ago, when I delivered a course for the FA. Well, it wasn't for the FA, actually, it was for the Premier League out in Dubai, to a group of coaches from Afghanistan, all male coaches, that didn't accept females really at all, let alone kind of in football. It's very sort of hierarchical. And walking into that environment where there was 24 male coaches that wouldn't even look me in the eye, speak to me, sit next to me at dinner, that was tough. That was probably one of the toughest experiences I've had. However, having said that, by the end of the week, it was probably one of the most rewarding. But to have to go through that mental strength of knowing that you've got to earn your right to kind of be here. And someone asked me the other day, actually, around being in coach ed and delivering courses. when you deliver like UEFA B, when you've got some probably knowledgeable coaches in the room, male and female, like, do you feel like you have to prove yourself? Do you feel, and I've never really thought about it like that, because I don't feel I do, but like I say, when you reevaluate your thoughts, I probably do some things that I wouldn't naturally do if it was a group of females I was delivering to, if that makes sense. So I think there's always that subconscious feel within your head that there is this like self-worth, and you do have to prove yourself when you walk into a room or deliver on a pitch in front of males. How you change that perception, I'm not sure, and I would like to think that I've had a pretty good, in my 15, 16 years of being involved in coaching, I'd like to think that the male people that I've had in my life have been more good than bad. They've been role models, so I've not had too many bad experiences.
Debbie, I'm going to ask you the $1 million question that Sam's just put out there. How do we solve it? Or do we wait till the end of this evening to do that?
I think that what you've just said there, it gives a bit of a kind of pathway. How do we solve it? And that's it, we. I think it's very important not to see this as a kind of women's issue. And what we tend to do in the game is to say, you know, certain people are discriminated against, so what are they going to do about it to create the change? But this has to be a change that everybody makes happen. So something which is really important is to mainstream these issues, and what I mean by that is bring those issues right into the forefront of every policy and practice that the FA engages with. In the kind of the public sector world, you know, there's the Equality Act, and if you're a local authority or if you're a government department, you've got to consider in every policy and practice that you bring about how that impacts on people who are protected under the Act. And I think that's a kind of good analogy that we could bring across really to bodies like the FA, because we do see it as a public body, and to a certain extent, you know, it runs our national game. So everything that it does, it should be thinking about, how does this impact on these groups? Does it impact on them well? Does it impact on them adversely? How can we promote their interests? And so I think if we can get that change within the organisation, great. That is going to be a challenge. What we can do on a personal level is connect with each other. So women connecting with each other is a really positive step, I think, because we do need that support. We do need that shared experience to support each other. But having our male allies as well and connecting with them is really important. And Sam, you just mentioned more good than bad. And what I can say is that I've got, you know, tremendous male coaches that I connect with, who I consider to be mentors, who will spot and point out and reinforce sexism for me, so that I feel empowered to be able to call it what it is sometimes, because we tend to turn it on ourselves. We say, oh, that's just me being sensitive. And they'll say, no, you're right to be sensitive, you're being undermined. And so I think there's a lot of things that our male colleagues can do to support us and to call out poor practice where they see it as well, just on an individual level. We can all do that. And so, you know, just if you're at that match and somebody comes over, if you're a parent, and asks you a question because they don't like what the female coach has said, you say, I'm sorry, I'm not the coach, she's the coach. And that's the way you can support women. It's little tiny things like that, and calling out the practices that you don't like when you see it.
Absolutely. We've linked it to a few times tonight. It's that feeling that this is for all of us to work on. Everybody, is our game, and this is an issue we've got to work at. We're going to have a little pause for a moment, and just while we have a little pause, I'm just putting something in the chat now. Is the link there to a female grassroots coaches community. It isn't female only, as you'll notice when you go in there, but it is aimed at predominantly females that are coaching the game, that want to feel part of a wider support network that's across the country. So we'll have a little 2-minute break. I hope you agree. There's been some amazing comments and thoughts shared by our guests so far. I'm sure there'll be more to come when we get into the second half, but we'll just have a little pause there for a couple of minutes. Please have a little click on the link there. It takes you to the grassroots community. You may have to sign in or sign up, but it's all free, it's all available. And Sam and I and our esteemed colleagues are on there daily, sort of taking part in some of the discussions that go on there. So that might be a little to do while we have a little pause for half time. But Sam, Debbie, Emma, cracking stuff so far. We'll come back in a few minutes, shall we? Thank you to those that have already been popping stuff in the chat box. Some really well-informed and interesting comments and thoughts, so thank you for those. I've seen, Emma, you've set up a game of football. Louise, is that right?
Yeah, I'm always networking.
Brilliant.
Local teams, yeah.
Hey, networking's exactly what that FA community is there for, is to know that there is a community that are all trying to, well, sort this issue, as we spoke about earlier. So no problem at all with that. Some scary stories in there as well that make me cringe, but they are, I don't doubt them for a moment, sadly. Maybe one day they won't be there. That would be good. I also always feel when we have a pause like that, we should have some music playing on the background, as they almost on hold or something. They never know the right music to play. Okay, hopefully everybody's had a chance to nip out, do what they need to do, make a fresh brew or get something stronger if necessary. But welcome back. If I could just ask Caroline, if you can hear us, could you just turn your camera off just so we get our panelists back on screen again? That'd be lovely. Assuming you can hear me, thank you. And we'll look to continue, and we'll chat away, I'm sure, for a little while, and then we'll start to get some questions from our audience. So keep in mind, I'll let you know a little bit later on when to start popping them in the chat box, but it'd be great just if you want to delve into any of the thoughts that's been raised by our panel so far this evening, or anything really that you just think's appropriate. We'd love to get your questions coming in rather than the ones that Sam and I have sort of been looking at. So, we might have somebody needing to go on mute. If you could, that'd be lovely. Sam and I are currently whizzing down the list trying to find who it is, but thanks for those that are muted at the minute. Sam, where do you want to kick us off the second half then?
Oh, sorry, I thought I was on mute. Nearly got caught, but now I'm not on mute. Yeah, so I think it'd be good to sort of find out from Debs just around your sort of supporters and allies. So who have been your biggest kind of supporters, role models, mentors to get you to kind of the place where you are today?
Yeah, good question. Initially, and still to this day, a guy called Mikey Harris, who was working as a national coach with the FA until recently. I think he's just about to join Southampton. He was a local manager here for Salisbury when they were Salisbury City, and then he's been a youth coach over at Portsmouth and then Brighton. But my son used to go to his after-school club, and Mikey really ran it as a free play kickabout session. We often had chats about football, and he's always been there for me. I ask him advice from football to dealing with parents to developing the club, and he's just always there by text with person, phone calls, suggestions, and always been really supportive. And again, if I'm in a situation where I explain I'm not really sure what to do about something, Mikey will not be afraid to call it out for what it is, and embolden me really to go and deal with it, because I'm not being dealt with fairly. So he's been great. There's also been a lot of people that I've connected with via Twitter, even before I started the club. guys like Peter Thornton and Richard Dalton who are on Twitter, and my really good mate called Paul Goodwin, who's on Twitter as Goody Lads as well. They're like constant sources of support, really, and never once have made me feel that I'm like just a woman. And so, you know, without them and their encouragement, and there's a guy called Mark O'Sullivan actually as well. I must name check people. Mark is a coach over with AIK in Sweden, and yeah, he's another source of like late night phone calls and chats and stuff. So yeah, there's loads of people like that, really good people in the game, and they kind of balance out the day-to-day rubbish sometimes that you have to deal with.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Debbie, as well, that we can sit here and talk about all the bad experience that we've had with certain males, but I certainly think overall, if you look at it, there's some very good males that really do support the women in the game, and I've been privileged enough to work with a lot over the years, and if I was to name some of my supporters, most would be male as well, so it's quite interesting. The ones that you've reeled off have all been male, so yeah, thanks for sharing that. Emma?
Yeah, mine would be, there's three people. So obviously my partner, who knows nothing about football, and sometimes it's quite good just to vent when you've had a session and you're in the reflection mode when you've done a session. No, my second one would be a coach called Nigel Smalls. He does a bit of coaching for QPR in the community, and we've coached together or for a university team. We think differently, which is great. So this is where I get lots of ideas. He's an athletics coach, so he can give information about, you know, running technique that I may lack. And then my other one is my FA mentor, which is Pete Augusta. So at the moment, I'm just finishing off my level 3 or my B license. And during lockdown, he doesn't have to, been doing Zoom sessions with me every couple of weeks, just going into the tactics side of it, but giving me the extra support on there as well. But yeah.
It stands out really stark to me that you've all just quoted male coaches or people, in not all cases, Emma, I know, but that's what we're trying to change, isn't it? That in X years, hopefully not many, we're in a place where we ask those questions again, and it's a roughly even spread. That would be mainstream, and Debbie used that word mainstream quite a lot. I've heard it said many times that that is the norm. So would you share that thought? Am I on the right lines with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's inevitable in a sense, isn't it, that because we're in a male-dominated environment, that most people we're going to come into contact with are going to be men. So it's about changing that kind of imbalance, isn't it, in a positive way, so that people do see that there are other women about. I mean, I literally don't know another female coach around where I live. I just don't know them, don't see them. And of course that presents a challenge in terms of support, but also in the way that people see you, because if you are so rare, then it does become, you know, kind of quite really stand out, particularly when you're dealing with, you know, I run an under-16 team of boys, and I'm always the only woman. We went to a tournament, I think just not during lockdown, but the year before, and there's like a manager's call. There was like 50 men and me. It's always that way. But what is really promising is that, you know, my boys don't see it that way. You know, in fact, when I pointed out once that you never see any other women around, they were like, really? Because they don't see me as, like, by my gender, they see me as their coach. So, you know, I think hopefully for the future, you know, we've got young men who are developing in different social circumstances, and schools are very good at this, yeah. I think, at promoting equality, and are taking, you know, maybe their own experience of positive female role models forward, and they can encourage and not have the same kind of views that we have to deal with from maybe the
Debbie, do you not get young people just get it? Yeah. Generally, when you talk about it, it's more the decision makers, which are generally the older, yeah, or and a certain type. When I speak to young people, they're so intelligent, they just get it. Mm-hmm. And when they were, because I coach under 16, when I talked to them about issues when I was that age, I was like, I totally was not switched on. I was in my little bubble, my cotton wool bubble, and young people blow me away. That's why I'm probably still coaching.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, definitely.
That makes me so happy that you talk about allies and supporters of what we're trying to do, and the youngsters that are coming get it and understand it, and that makes me confident that we are looking at a different culture or a different game in the future. That would certainly be where we want to go, and if young people are going to help us do that, Debbie, that comes back to your point around young people need the voice.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, because as you say, young people blow you away. I mean, I'm constantly blown away by their capacity and ability from the youngest age to be able to express themselves and to come up with ideas. Coaches can sweat over session plans, whereas they just turned up with a group of 7-year-olds and said, "What, make up a game?" The kids would be like, you'd be like, wow, they've come up with something amazing. So that is a really powerful force in the game. When we're talking about allies, the people that we coach are our allies as well.
Absolutely. I'm pleased there's some really positive kind of thoughts coming on at the minute. What if I were to say to you, Sam, what's the best bit about coaching then? So we're talking a lot about the players. Emma, you referenced the players earlier on about why you do it. What to someone who's thinking about becoming a coach and they've maybe listened to that and gone, crikey, it's going to be tough because of the things that you've articulated so well. What would be the positives that would try and readdress the balance? Why should you go and be a coach?
Oh, good question.
I'm hoping you can answer it, Sam. It's our job.
Good question. I think, like I say, I'll go back to what I said earlier about if it's something that you're passionate about, you can make such a difference. And I know we've spoke so much about tonight around all the barriers, the challenges with female in coaching, and I think that is across sport. I don't think it is just football. I think some of these problems run across different sports. Yeah. But I think if you genuinely have that passion, or you've got a son or daughter that plays and then you want to get involved, it's almost just jump on the bus, the train, wherever we're going on this journey of and we talk about it, work around normalising women in sport and women in football. And I think the more people that have the confidence to do that, the better place. I've just seen, and I was just reading through the chat box, like in 2-3 years time, we'll hopefully be in a place where it will be normal. I'll turn up and I'll just be a coach. I won't be, oh, you've got a female coach now, you've got a female mentor, or we're just a coach. We're not a male coach, female coach, we're just a coach. And I think you make a great point around kids don't care. I genuinely believed if you asked a group of under 6s or under 7 who your coach was, they'd just go, oh, it's Sam or it's Martin. It's not, oh, I've got a girl that's a coach. Like they just appreciate someone spending a bit of time with them and having a bit of fun with them. So yeah, I think I just say just go for it. Go and have a go and go and enjoy it. If you enjoy the game and you want to make a difference, then go and have a go. What can go wrong? What's the worst thing that can happen? That's what I'd say.
Claire certainly agrees with that in the chat box. Sorry, Debbie, what would it be for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar. It's the joy. I mean, don't you miss it when you're not doing it for 3 months? The joy of being around children, and they are, I mean, it can be challenging, but the children themselves are an absolute joy. And so it's a real privilege to be able to, every single Saturday morning, I have the absolute honour of coaching all the children at the club from the ages of 5 to 16. So I see them all, I've seen them grow, I know who they are, and that's such a special thing. And, they do bring this lightness into your life because, as adults, there's a lot of drudgery and there's a lot of hard work and routine, and kids don't have that. They, express themselves and it's fun and joyful. So I think, yeah, just being able to be part of their lives in a small way like that and sharing that experience of something that they love and that we love too, and just, sharing that love of the game together is a really great thing.
It's the best game in the world. That's for me. It's I'm just wondering, there might be some people out there that are thinking, oh, I'm considering it. And would there be anything that jumps to mind? Maybe if you went back to when you started coaching, the worries you had then that you might be able to sort of smooth over now with some knowledge. What would that look like, Emma?
Yes. You might not know it all. So there's still, when I do sessions with my under 16s, and even with my women's team, where majority of them have never played, or actually because of the FA ban, were unable to play younger. Actually, as a coach, like, yeah, I don't know, but have you got an idea on the problem? So problem solving doesn't always mean you're solving it. It could be the players. But for me, what's massive, doesn't matter if it's adults or children, it's, as a coach, what I get impacted is when you see confidence in the players, doesn't matter whatever age. Smiling's a good one. if they're coming week in, week out, and also this is a big one, they make friends. They start doing stuff outside of football with them. That just impacts me. And then I had one where her husband died of COVID in June, and she said football was like a rehab. Not a rehab, was sort of what's the right word?
Was it almost a release for it?
A release.
A change of environment?
Yeah, and I got emotional reading that email. I was like, Rebecca, because sometimes you don't see that as a coach, the impact of that 1 or 2 hours a week on that individual. But yeah, that really made me think, well, actually, we've set up a club out of nothing, and this is the feedback we're getting, which is nice.
Nice. It's amazing. It's fantastic. It is, and having Sam and I working really hard across our regions to set up little communities and networks, and often the bit here, and obviously I don't want to speak out of turn, the bit here is like, I don't know football. And I'd come back to your point earlier, Debbie, of going, what you talked about and how enthusiastic you were about it, you not once mentioned technical, tactical football. It was all around connection. Would that be a fair worry that some people might be having that you challenge?
Yeah, and I think what I always say, we've had like students come to our club, they come from university and they find coach, and they're all very, they can be very structured. And I always say, we're delivering with children, not to them. And for me, it's that relationship. If you can get over that barrier, that everything, as you said, Emma, everything we do has got to be right, and we've got to have all this special gold dust knowledge that we scatter on the players. If you can move away from that to realise that actually it's about, it's a two-way process. It's about knowing the children or knowing the adults that you're with, and finding a pathway together to get what they want out of the game. And I think that becomes much less daunting. So for me, when I was starting out, I would see, a kind of really experienced older coach delivering something in a very structured way where the children would do, all following instructions. And I'd think, I can't do that command performance. I don't know how to deliver that with that level of knowledge and control. But actually, I found, for me, I found that wasn't my way at all. I don't want to deliver like that. And once you get used to the fact that, particularly with children, there can be absolute chaos, then everything becomes so much easier. And one of the talking about men talking over you, like I did before, that's the point at which often happens. Just a quick example, if you don't mind, from our club. Every single session we start with a call in for, sit down, have a little chat. What have you been doing this week? The children share, like, oh, I've had a party, I've done this, I've been to the film, to the cinema. And they're chaotic, and everybody talks at once, and there's no structure, and they get really overexcited. And there's nearly always a man's voice who'll go, shh, listen to Debbie speak. And I would say to them, if I wanted to do that, I would have said that. This is the way I want it to be, because this is the way that I coach. And so it's having the confidence really to say, it doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be quiet, it doesn't have to be controlled. That's the old model, find your own way. That's what I would say. Fantastic.
I hope people are really taking some stuff for this. I can see from the way the chat's bubbling away that it seems to be. So thank you so far. Emma, you've spoken in the past to me about sort of the worry of burnout because of the challenges. What would be some of your thoughts around that? But again, most importantly, what are you doing to counteract it?
Yeah, so sometimes I have previously worked at grassroots clubs where you're the only female coach, and they're like, oh, could you do more sessions? And as a coach, you sometimes feel, actually, I can't say no, but actually you should, because burnout, technically, if there was more hours in the day, I would be coaching every second of the day, but I know coaching can be a little bit draining. So for me, I have to go through prep. I have to mentally be in the zone, have enough, literally, sugar, so I'm hyper, because I have to be hyper. For me, coaching for me is a bit of a drama, where I have to be in the mood. I have to basically be in a good mood, be on it for my players, because I can't go in there looking moody or whatnot. So for me, I hype myself up. So even that's with my women's team, or whether that's with my under-16s team. So I go through like a process, right? This is what I need to do. This is what I need to include. This is the aim of the session. And then I'll have discussions with another coach on that. But I'm sort of going off topic now, aren't I?
It's all right. It's all valid. Don't worry.
So yeah, I just go through process, but that's taken me so there's always been and I'm going off topic about coaching philosophies. Mine's constantly changing. So when people ask me and like, what's your coaching philosophy? It's changing. It's all about what do the players need? What do the players need from me? How can I help or develop them so they stay in the game longer? Whether that's with me in my team or actually they want to go play for another team, which to me, I see that as success. If they're still in the game at a certain age, whether they're not with my team or they are moving away or anything like that, I just want to be there always as a support mechanism, if that makes any sense. So over sort of lockdown, I've done Zooms with my players. The first lockdown, we had it every week. They hated it. They told me in the second one not to have Zoom at all, so I didn't. And then in the third one, I had players from like professional clubs, so Geck, Reading, women's, and then a Swedish player as well. So again, it's just for me, it's listen to players, engaging. What do you want? Okay, I'll try and set that up. But yeah, I've gone off topic. So
that's all right. I want to just pick up on one thing that was really noticeable to me in there, and it says so much about whether we use the word philosophy or not. But you as a coach, you didn't say my players, which is what I hear so often. You said the players, and that for me completely changes the dynamic. That you see that you're there to help. They're not there to play for you, which is how a lot of people do see it. And that says a lot about the type of coach you clearly are, which is a fantastic thing. And I hope people might take a note from that as well. We've got some questions that have popped in the chat. I've tried to keep up with them. Sam, I hope you're doing the same, because I've tried to see the ones. So now we've just passed 8 o'clock. I'm cautious to give Debbie and Emma a little breather before we get them answering some more. If you've got a question, stick it in the chat. If you want to come on and ask it and say hello properly, by all means, stick your hand up. You'll see there's a little hand up function somewhere. If you can't find that, go with the chat and we'll come to you. But some of the ones I've picked up so far. So Sarah asked a question earlier, and I'm hoping everybody's put their name in right on their Microsoft Teams account. Otherwise, I could say something really wrong here, but I'm hoping it was you, Sarah. She's asked, can everybody just note down that sort of where they're based and their coaching age groups, just as a little way of finding out a bit about people. So if anybody wants to have a little crack at that in the chat box, that would be useful for Sarah. Debbie, you spend most of your time with the 16s, would that be right?
Yeah, I suppose I see them more frequently than any other age group, yeah. And the rest of the kids we do Saturday sessions for, but they run in a league, so yeah, we have training and futsal and stuff with them as well.
So you get across all the different ages, don't you?
Yeah, I do all the age groups, yeah.
Sam, you're adults, but then I know your background is many different. So how would you sort of describe where you're coaching at and your experience that way?
Sorry, just say that again, Martin. I was faffing around with that chat box. Go on.
There's no problem. Just so you're coaching adults at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah.
But again, experiences with all across the age groups as well.
Yeah.
And Emma, I know your fastest finger ever. You've been putting it in the chat box. You're way ahead, aren't you? But there we go. They're flying in now. We've got quite a mix as well. Under
That's
60s,
what I was trying to read through.
I didn't even see who it was, but under
Going
60s,
so
I
quick.
love that age group. Give me the youngsters any day. That's where I'm at. That's my happy place when I've got a group of youngsters on a pitch somewhere with a few footballs. Some of the questions have come in, and I'm great that some are quite random and some link quite nicely. Alfonso's put in the chat box around coaching with a disability and how that might be quite a scary thing that they've put in there. And I know, and what I love is that how people are starting to answer some of this in the chat box for us as well, which shows what a little community we're already starting to build. Emma, would you have any guidance? I know in your other life, you do a lot of work for the disability charity. Any ideas or support you'd be able to offer?
Yeah, so I would always see what's in your local area, what your county FA can help. I'd also see if there are disability teams in the local area, or if there's any grassroots teams for you. As I say, I would recommend the FA Player Maker. And I'd also get a pen and paper and write down why you would like to be a coach or get into coaching, and sort of build from there. I would also recommend shadowing. So even if you find out where your local grassroots club, can you shadow, because I did this for a couple of years, shadow different coaches to see what coaches are sort of involved. Also, if you have a disability and you have a PA or a support worker, can they help find the opportunities as well, or a PA for that as well, and reaching out as well to people that work in the game as well, because sometimes it's really hard to get the knowledge. I know the knowledge because they're sort of in football, if that makes any sense. So for people that may not have the knowledge of contacts within the game, speaking to people that do, does that make any sense? I know also there's quite a lot of like Facebook groups sort of within different areas. So wherever you're based, see if there's opportunities at sort of local grassroots where you can go down and shadow, or as I say, be a BBC, which I did, which is balls, bibs and cones, helping with sort of the coach. But again, it's for you. So tailor what you would like to do, and then get in touch with clubs sort of that way. But I'm more than happy if you want me to give you email address, more than happy to give you a call, Alfonso, because I want to see more people with disabilities, because I do have I learn dyslexic, so I want to see more people. One of my passions is getting more people with disabilities as coaches, because I think it's really important. I think visibility and role models is massive, because I want more people with disabilities playing football, especially females.
And you link again into the connections, the relationships again with people who can be part of that support network, and also understanding that whatever your background, circumstances, situation, context, whatever, that first little go at being a coach is quite a scary thing to do, and being okay with that, but making sure that, where possible, trying to go in with some support. And that's certainly from a female perspective and from a disability perspective something that we're certainly keen to do in our roles in coach development. So hopefully there'll be some networks like that building around you that we can start to link in with, for sure. Another question came in, I think it was Chloe, but excuse me if I've got that wrong, because they're flying down the screen, around increasing particularly female players. But I was going to come to you, Debbie, first and go, how do you build a club? How do you get 100 kids from an area that either weren't playing or other clubs? What have you done how do you do this Pied Piper thing?
It's a good question. How did we do it? I think we've got a core group of people who are still with us from the kind of first early days, but there's been quite a lot of movement out of the club. But what we've done is kind of fine-tuned our philosophy as a club, really, and so people know more what they're getting when they come to us and actively choose to be with us now. I think from the start it was very kind of child orientated, lots of free play, kickabouts, lots of opportunities just to play football in unstructured environments, and people either liked that or they didn't. But I think we had to go through some rocky times, if I'm frank, to get to where we are. But we have kind of almost got, for want of a better word, a kind of brand that people know now. So I think people actively opt in or they go. So I think it's about that identity as well. So it's about finding your own way. Again, I talk about that a lot. Who are we? What do we offer to children? And making that as clear as possible. So we've tried to make our messaging really clear, and that's how we've grown and sustained ourselves, really.
Amazing. And Emma, for you, growing that club out of lockdown, which is just ridiculous on the face of it, but amazing at the same time. What I imagine it was a lot about thinking about who are the people we want involved, and therefore how do we do things on their terms. But in a very similar way to Debbie's talk about making it child friendly because it's for children. How did you make it suitable for women aged 30 and above, like you said earlier? What did you do to do that?
So we just did something really simple before we even set up to see actually there was demand. We set up a Google survey, really simple. When did you want the sessions? What's your ability? Like, have you played before? how much you want it to be. And a lot of them were saying they wanted it to be £5. We're like, no, we're going to charge £2. But there was real demand. So within the 2 weeks, we had about 45 people fill it in. And all we did is we marketed it with, because I've got a marketing degree, we did it around the local village of Wheatley. We didn't do the mainstream of, we put a bit on social media, but actually we sent it to our local parish, and that's where we got a lot of people that were signing up, and then they were getting other friends to sign up because there was nothing in our little village. So as I say, I'm very, very amazed, because my full-time job is working in a learning disability charity where if I'm setting up teams, it takes ages. But for some strange reason, there was actual demand in the area, and we just sort of organically just rolled with it, really.
So I've just, something else jumps to mind. I've just put in a link in the chat now around, there's some female-friendly toolkit that's available, and some female-friendly training that's run online at the moment that might be suitable to access. But it's just a bit like Debbie, you spoke earlier about, whenever you're considering doing anything, are you considering all the people and on the various needs that need to be catered for? So there might be something useful in that. Sam, I can see you're beaving away in the chat box. Anything that's jumped out for you in there you've seen?
Yeah, there is, to be fair. It's not so much a question, but it's probably something that it's again, just reading it just inspires you. And it's Donna, who's basically been involved in a very male dominated club for however long, but her daughter goes to everything, and wants to give her daughter an opportunity to play. So she's sort of put herself forward to take a team, so stepping outside of her comfort zone, because she wants to inspire her daughter and almost show that it's not just a boys' game and women can do what and be whatever they want to be. So I just thought that was really nice. That's a female mum taking that leap of faith, if you like, that next step of going, I'm going to step out my comfort zone to create something for the next generation of sort of females and want to be that role model. And I think when you talk about role models, that's the bit that probably inspires youngsters. And I know we've talked a lot around the grassroots game tonight and the 5 to 11s, but I think even if you look at probably senior players that Emma works with, I'd like to hope and think that the players that I work with at probably more of an elite level still probably look up to me as a female and a role model. So yeah, I was just reading through that, and yeah, it just sparked that's quite inspirational for a mum to be prepared to do that for a daughter and go, there's a bigger picture here, and I'm going to step outside my comfort zone to almost inspire the next generation.
Brilliant, well done, Donna.
Amazing, absolutely amazing.
Well done.
Sorry, I'm sure there's loads more in the chat, but it's literally gone that quick tonight. I've struggled to sort of keep up with it, but that was just one that jumped out.
Donna, you're still doing it now with that comment as well. Fantastic. I can assure you, Sam and I, and we'll share it with Debbie and Emma as well, we will be going back through the chat and having a proper read over a cuppa at some point, so get a real feel of some of the comments that we put. So thank you for being so open with that. I'm cautious that we offer the opportunity out for any of the questions as well. So does anybody want to come off mute and come on camera as well if you want to? Obviously you don't have to, and ask anything to Debbie, Emma and Sam, or even stick anything else in the chat. I'll just give you a few minutes to do that if you want to. Just dive in if you do.
Just while we wait for that to come in, Martin, I think I just want to personally sort of say thanks to you tonight for hosting this. I can appreciate that it's probably not the easiest role tonight to be thrown in front of sort of three females that are chomping at the bit to change the women's game. And probably just to ask you a question around, how do you perceive some of this stuff, and how does it make you feel as a probably a male in this kind of environment, I suppose?
Crikey, yeah. So some of the stories I hear genuinely make me cringe, and if I was there, I would have challenged. I take it back to, I've used this with our team, Sam, haven't I? How would my mum feel? Yeah. That's my kind of measuring stick. If my mum at that point would have felt terrible, uncomfortable, angry, all the other negative emotions, I'll have to say something. I'll have to dive in. I'm not naive to think that the issues out there are close to being solved. I think we've got a lot of work to do, and again, we have got a lot of work to do. But also, and I mean this genuinely and truly, I've been around grassroots football for years and years and years. I'm yet to find a female coach who does it for themselves. They, just like Emma spoke earlier, they do it for the kids, the players, the adults, whoever it is they're working with. So I don't find any ego in female coaches. I'm sure there is some, like in any walk of life, but I don't see it. I see that truly they are doing it to make a difference to players, whether that be kids, adults, whatever. So that's why I love being involved in it. That's why I love the role that we're trying to do at the moment, Sam, of readdress this balance.
Yeah.
I know there's male coaches out there that think we're trying to get rid of them and swap with females. That's not the case either. No, it's about, to use Debbie's word, mainstreaming and going that it's just coaching, whether it's male, female, makes no difference. It's just coaching. And good coaching starts with connecting with the players, making them feel that it's all about them, because it is, and then helping them along the way by working with them. So, yeah, Emmy, you've talked about you going off on tangents. I think I just have there, but that's how I kind of see it. Yeah, and things like this, and when I read the comments in the chat box, just makes you feel good, doesn't it? It just makes you feel that there are some amazing people out there trying to really make a difference.
Yeah, and I think if you just read some of the comments as well, I think it takes very little for a female to just have a bit of a boost of confidence again. I think there's many times where you get to a point where you go, not sure I can do this anymore. I've certainly worked with a lot of females in the game that are ready to kind of hang the boots up, if you like, but sometimes it's just an arm round, it's a chat, and like I say, you'll see from the chat box tonight, people have gone away going, I really needed that. It's given me that bit of boost of confidence, that what I needed to kind of carry on and remind them of the difference that they do make. Just a couple of questions that have come in around how would you advise encouraging young females playing football, especially around ages 16, 17, 18, to maybe consider coaching as an option? Emma, I don't know if you've done any work or how do you encourage your players to
100%. So I've told all my under 16s I want them to do FA Player Maker by the end of the season. And they're like, why? Because actually some of them get it, that actually they can use it for CV, for their supporting their application for university, or some will just do it for the sake of it. But I've asked every single player. There's one player that needs maybe a little bit more support on the tech side, but they need to see it. They need to, some of them might not be interested, but even like giving a go at the FA Player Maker, it's the opportunity a lot of time, because I like to get in Fulham, Palace. I like to get them talking to my players and QPR, just talking someone else, so it's not just me. And there's lots of other people within the game, because as adults, I feel, or as a coach, I feel it's a responsibility for me to give them as many opportunities as possible in football. So if they ask me, Emma, can you tell me about America scholarships? I'll go and find someone who has knowledge on the American scholarships, where you're going out to America and studying and playing football. Whatever they want, within reason, obviously, I'll try and find the information as well, if that makes any sense. So what players want, I'm basically their PAs. They want this, I try and source it and get it for them. Because sometimes my players, the background may be a bit of a struggle, where they might not have that opportunity or may not have the support. As an adult, I need to try and get that, or try and facilitate that for them, because every single one of my players is important, or is important. So if they're asking me a question, I better try and find the answer to it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And just going back to encouraging that sort of age group to take coaching as an option, I think as a coach yourself, if that's the age group that you're looking after, like me sort of coaching adult females, you'll start to get a feel for the players within your group that probably have some of those leadership qualities that might lend themselves to coaching. And we've talked a lot about this just lately around how we engage more females into sort of coaching, whether it be mums on the sideline, whether it be young players that are still playing. And I think sometimes it's making them feel that they have got an attribute, that you've spotted something in them. I think naturally as females, humans, it makes you feel good if someone goes, do you know what, you've got a real kind of skill set, I think, to do something like this. So I sometimes think highlighting maybe a couple in your own head and reassuring them that you've spotted something, that they could go on and do something, really helps that with that confidence of stepping forward and going, oh, do you know what, if my coach thinks that, I might have half a chance.
It's funny because my under 16s, I see all of them as coaches. They all have different qualities, and I openly tell them that actually give that a go, see what your thoughts are. You may not enjoy it, or you may not, but you need to give it a go. Just try. My thing is just try something. If it doesn't work, then fine. But at least you can come back and say, I tried that. But when I ask my players about leadership, some of them, I don't know if it's an age thing. They think you should be loud. You actually doesn't matter if you're quiet. There's so many different qualities to actually being a leader. And as I say, I see every single one of my 18 players in the under 16s. They could all be coaches. They've all got different attributes. I mean, I've got players, 4 of them that are German, so I get them teaching me German and how I should be communicating German in the session as well. But they're teaching me as well, so it's like a two-way thing as well. And obviously the fun bit is totally I could go on and on about it, but this is the real positives for me, is the players I've been coaching for like 10-15 years keep me in the game. If it was outside things influence, I wouldn't be involved still in the game.
Just on that point of older players as well, younger players, then what we do is we have our under 16s. Some of them come and help with the young children, so they'll take a little group, like my son takes like 3 or 4 6-year-olds on a Saturday, and they just play a little game together, and he absolutely loves it. And so that connection is really important. So it's showing young people that they're kind of like Premier League superstars to 6-year-olds and under 16 player. They think, oh my goodness, you can do all these tricks. And some of the older boys have done little videos for them. So it's little things like that. You can, if you're at a club where there's a difference in age groups, you can get some of the older ones to come and help with the younger ones.
It's that bit of role models, isn't it? That people they can look up to and they want to be like. We all had someone, or many, hopefully, as youngsters. And it leads to a question that I think Kevin's put in the chat around the new TV deal for the WSL. And again, are we mainstreaming female athletes, female sports people in the public eye? That can only be a good thing. Would that be your opinions too?
Definitely, yeah.
More female role models we've got, the better, for sure. We are going to change this over, whether it's a generational thing, a society thing. We're going to make a difference, aren't we? Sorry, Emma, did I cut you off then?
Oh no.
We are possibly coming to a close. The questions have seemed to have slowed in the chat, but we've got some amazing comments and some thank yous for Debbie and Emma in particular. I've lost count of how many times someone said you're both amazing. So keep
I would
up
say
with...
people do feel free if anybody's thinking about taking that step. Our website, salisburyroversfc.co.uk. There's an email address on there. Please, contact me at any time. I'm happy to chat by email or on the phone or whatever. It's something I often do. So I just wanted to add that.
Yes, same here as well. As my expertise or my full-time job is disability, so if you ever want to get in touch with that disability, especially girls, please get in touch.
And just to start to bring us to a roundup, hopefully you've clicked on that link I put on earlier. I'll stick it back in the chat in a moment again, around our FA community for female grassroots coaches. There are some mugshots you might see on the screen at the moment of our team. The 9 of us are out there trying to make a difference, trying to support female coaches in the game, trying to help female coaches become coaches as well. So if you want to log on to that and get to know a little bit more about what we're trying to do, but also it's an open forum for discussion. Ask a question, you'll get an answer pretty quickly on there. So I'd love it if we could get to see you in there at some point. And then finally, kind of last thoughts, and I'll come to our panel for the final thoughts rather than for me, but thanks for spending your time this night. Thanks for giving an hour and a half of your life. You already give up a huge amount of time, I'm sure, to grassroots football, and it's clear from the chat that you're doing amazing things. I hope you found the session that we've done interesting. I certainly have. It's been incredibly inspirational, not just from our panel, but again, some of the things we've been able to read tonight as well. And the next bit is football's coming back soon, and now's the chance to help our players fall back in love with it all over again. I'm sure you're looking forward to it. There might be a little of anxiety because it's been a while, but I'm sure the moment you get back out with those players, you'll be in your happy place again. So any closing thoughts? If I come to you first, Emma?
Yeah, if in doubt, ask someone. As if you're looking at starting your coaching journey or qualifications, it's okay not to know everything. And just remember what your goals are. So whether it's picking up knowledge, whether that's you're doing it for individuals or the opportunity, but yeah, and as I say, the mindset of coaching is changing. So mindset is changing. Young people get it. It's the decision makers that may make it a little bit challenging. But yeah, I would highly recommend it. There are some bad, but there's also goods that make me sleep very well at night.
Debbie, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I would just say to people, if you're thinking about it, do it. You are good enough. You are good enough. You will doubt yourself, but believe me, you are good enough. And even though we've talked about a lot of bad things out there, the fact that there are a lot of bad things out there mean that you're going to be a massive, massive improvement and a welcome addition to the game. So connect with people, get the support, but you are good enough.
Brilliant, Debbie. Thank you. Sam, any closing thoughts? Anything that stuck out for you tonight to wrap us up?
Not massively. I think the two guests have stole the show, to be honest. So just a massive thank you to you both, and to everybody on the call. Thank you for logging in. And like I say, the biggest thing for me is just be brave, be brave to affect change. And like I say, if we all get a jump on the bus, the train, whatever I keep going on about, whatever journey it's going on, that we will get there. And I do believe in, if we're having this conversation another 2-3 years time, we will normalise sort of women in coaching and women in sport. So keep going at it, and we're all here to help.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you,
very
Emma.
much,
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Keep safe. Look forward to football coming back. Hope to see you as part of our community, and look forward to working with you again in the future. But thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Yeah, bye.